Hello, I'm Ads, and today I'll be showing you how I painted the boss man of the Imotekh dynasty, Imotekh the Stormlord. Let's start with the sub-assemblies and priming. I left the cape off for now, as painting inside and up behind him would truly have been a pain in the arse to do. I also left the hand with the staff of the destroyer off, just to be extra cautious, though it's not a big deal if you glue it on. I primed the body and the staff with lead belcher, and the cloak and base in black, after which I painted up the base and attached Imotekh to make handling him easier. I started on the cloak first so I can attach it when I'm ready to. I start with a healthy Drybrush of Incubi darkness to get the light values on. Literally, I'm just trying to mimic where light would fall and reflect off of the cloak, and I get an idea of where that would be by holding it up to my painting light. I then do the same on a smaller area with Carbolite green, then one last Drybrush and a selective highlight with Cyberite green. I also run some well-thinned white ink and a couple coats of green fluo between some of the plates to try and mimic a lightning and thunderclouds look to the cloak. He's the Stormlord, you know, you should have some lightning in there. If you mess up at all, just bring back your previous colours to clean up. I probably should have put a coat of my usual black across the whole thing to help with hiding errors, but oh well. The little scarabs are a small detail, so I'll run through those really quick. The metallic areas are blocked in with lead belcher and washed back with null oil, then given a quick highlight with Stormhose silver. I blocked the carapace in with black and highlighted with Caliban green, Warpstone glow and Moot green. The little white face is based with Celestra grey, then again with Ulthuan grey, washed with Grifcharger grey, then highlighted with Ulthuan grey and white. The orb in the back is blocked with Corax white, then a couple layers of green fluo, and the tiny eye was dotted with Moot green. Hopping over to Imotekh proper now, I start with all the silvers by dousing the whole mini in null oil, being quite careful about pooling and also trying to keep it off the base where I can. My null oil is old formula, so stains more heavily than the current stuff. You might want to do another coat if you don't feel like the definition is good enough. When dry, I relayered the silver areas with Ironbreaker, then thinned down Stormhose silver and glazed up a transition, plus some edge highlights and blocking in some cleaner areas with the same colour. When glazing with metallics, I water the paint down quite heavily until almost just the metallic flake is left, and build up multiple layers for maximum sheen. When that's dry, I then use Basilicanum Grey, thin it down quite heavily, and pull a dark shadow to the bottom of each metallic section to boost the gradient. This blends the gradient a little more and makes the silver look shinier than it is to my eye, like a sort of fake chromed effect. Sticking with the metallics, I blocked in the gold areas with a couple coats of Retributor armour next, namely the collar and plates around the spine, the centre of the Robo loincloth, and the lower plates on his hips. When these dried out, I washed back with Rymdklang Flashshade, doing a second coat around the collar to deepen the recess around the runes. When dry, I relayer and glaze where necessary with Auric Armour Gold, then edge highlight with a 60-40-ish mix of Liberator Gold and Stormhose Silver. The exact mix is quite forgiving, you just want a bit more gold than silver. I took a look over the model and felt some areas could do with a bit more wash, so just brought back Rymdklang Flashshade to help with some of those gradients the relayering had lost. This isn't all the areas I'm doing gold, but for the sake of how I'm painting this one, this is where I moved on. I'll hit the last couple gold details at the end when everything's stuck together. Next is the white details, and there's only really one, the stripe on the forehead. All my important lads have one, and Imotekh's the most important, so he gets one too. I base coat the whole stripe with Celestra Grey, then again with Ulthuan Grey. I do Celestra first as it covers far better than Ulthuan does over the silver. I then thin down Gryph-Charger Grey and pull that from the top of the head toward the brown next to tint the colour towards the colder side. Then glaze Ulthuan Grey again in the opposite direction to get a gradient. Lastly, I edge highlight with white ink. For the next few details I want a black base coat, so I whipped round and quickly base coated those in. I'm staying fairly true to the fine cast Imotekh I painted up a few years ago, so sticking with the darker ribcage from the old box art and some dark green details to match my army. By all means though, paint anything I hit here silver if you'd rather match the newer box art. I focus on the purple details first, specifically the ribcage, the top plates hanging at the hips, and the outer run of plates on the loincloth. I glazed Naggaroth Knight down towards the bottom of these details to get a sort of purple haze to them, then edge highlighted with Xerius purple and Genestealer purple, adding a couple nicks and scratches where it felt bare. These are actually different purples to my fine cast one, but I was in autopilot when painting this and just forgot what I was doing. Really like the look though, glad I messed up. Whilst I'm in the ribcage, I went ahead and painted in the cables hanging around in there. I paint the cables across my army all the same way, so if you've seen my previous Necron tutorials, you know the drill, but if not, here's the quick rundown. Ribbed cables get blocked in Corax White, washed completely with Gryph-Charger Grey, then Black Templar, and highlighted with Thunderhawk Blue and Fenrisian Grey. Smooth cables in the chest are based with Demonet Hide, washed with Nuln Oil, and highlighted with Watfiend Grey and Slaanesh Grey. Continuing to do the same scheme as my fine cast Imotekh, I then work on the green details. I start with Caliban Green, glazing it much in the same way on the cartouche and the Gauntlet of Fire as I did with the purples on the ribcage, pulling the paint down to get a hint of colour in there. I also glaze this on the little cable on the gauntlet, pulling towards the middle from the edges. Next is Warpstone Glow, edge highlighting the gauntlet and cartouche, glazing again on the cable but over a smaller area than before, and carefully blocking in all the orbs lemony with a couple coats. Then Moot Green, adding point highlights to the hard details and thinning it about 3 parts Larmian medium to 1 part green to glaze onto the orbs and cable. And lastly, just for the orbs, I thinned Ethereal Yellow to the same ratio as the Moot Green to put a hot spot right in the middle of each orb. Finally for Imotekh, I return to the symbols on his forehead and the cartouche and paint those in gold. It's mostly the same thing, though because they're so small, I forewent the Auric Armor Gold step, just based, washed and highlighted instead. I did the same on the small segments between the purple sections of the loincloth, but did those off camera, it was really fiddly. Okay, I forgot one of the most important things with Necrons while doing the greens. The ribs and eyes have to glow. I heavily watered down warpstone glow, flooded the eye sockets, and pulled towards the centre of the chest in the ribs. I repeat that in the ribs with moot green, just not as much this time, and layer the eyeballs with the usual layer consistency. I also dot the eyes with Ghost Blaster green on my Necrons, but by all means don't worry so much if you'd rather not, they look great as is. Now for the Staff of the Destroyer, which so far I've just washed with Nuln Oil and painted the hand up the same way as the body. I like how the staff's done like box art, so I want to do something similar. I start by blocking in the black areas with Corvus Black. All the edges got a highlight with Skaven Black Dinge, and top edges got a smaller highlight of Storm Vermin Fur. I then do the metallic details, dotting each little circle in the handle with Retributor armour, then highlighting all the silver with Stormhost silver. I also did the cartouche above the handle in the same way as Imotekh's. Last on the staff are all the green details, including the blades. I start by blocking the blades in with a couple thin layers of black. I prefer to put 2 or 3 thin layers on to avoid texture buildup on Necron blades. I then glaze through the greens I've been using so far. Caliban green, warpstone glow, and moot green mixed 1 to 3 with Larmian medium, building up a solid cover over a few layers, then glazing over a smaller area with the greens as they get brighter. Some things to keep in mind with glazing. First, be 100% sure you let each layer dry fully before adding another, as trying to glaze over nearly dry paint can wash away the paint that isn't dry yet and leave weird splotches in your gradient. Also, if you're struggling with each step, mix the colours together between steps to help with the effect. It'll take longer, but your gradient will be much smoother. And if you go too far, you can always bring back your previous colours to smooth out the blend. I bring back black when I'm finished with the greens, for example. I'm also painting the orbs of the staff as I go here. I block them in with Warpstone Glow, then use thin moot green to build the colour, and then use 1 to 3 Iril Yellow and Larmian Medium for the hotspots right in the middle. Again, use previous colours to help with the transitions if the steps are too defined. Lastly on the blades though, I edge highlight entirely with Ghost Blaster green. I can't lie, I had a really hard time highlighting these blades. I had to repaint a couple of the surfaces a couple times because I really messed up. Learn from my mistakes here. Have a sharp tipped brush, wick off excess paint on a paper towel before you put it on the model, and focus on upper facing edges since you're mostly going to be seeing the mini from over it. There's not really any quick way of doing it though, you just have to kind of knuckle down, take your time and do your best. Don't worry about getting green in the recesses either, you can just run black into the channels when you're finished. The last touch was to glue the cape on and finish off the pauldrons. I used the same colours for the dark green as on the gauntlet and repeat the steps for all the other orbs on the one set in the shoulders. And with that, that's how I painted Imotekh. This new sculpt for him is a delightful upgrade that grants him the stature he deserves and is far more preferential to painting the Finecast sculpt. If you have any questions, or if I skipped over something too quickly, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Thanks again for watching, good luck with your own Imotekh, I'll see you again soon.